Welcome to Angelo's Tennis, and in this video we're going to learn how to serve. And this video is going to be very simple, and it's a comprehensive video on how to serve. So there I am, I'm getting ready, and there's going to be two things that we're going to do to learn how to serve from the ground up. We're going to start this from scratch. Okay, this is the way. If you want to have a serve, if you want to have a great serve, a fully developed serve, you have a kid, you're an adult, etc. This is what you have to do, and I want to emphasize that this is what you have to do. This isn't a quick fix. This isn't tennis tips. This is comprehensive. What you have to do, what you have to practice over a long period of time, depending on where you are in your development. So the first thing is you have to learn how to throw. And I don't care what anyone says. This has to be you can serve without knowing how to throw. Okay? You can probably have a decent serve without knowing how to throw. That's irrelevant to me. You have to be able to throw well in order to have a great serve. You have to be able to throw, okay, at a decent level. Let's go back and look at this again. Here I am. Now I know how to throw. I grew up pitching baseball. Okay, that's what I did when I was a kid. Hours and hours and hours of pitching baseball. I was a pitcher, I was a catcher, I was a second baseman, and I played every position, but those are my primary positions, okay? Now I'm going to take the racket. Now these are all kind of jumbled up. These are different steps that you can do, but I'm going to put it all together here at some point. So here I am. I'm on the short court. I'm on the service line. I'm facing forward because that's the last phase of the serve. I'm just going to toss the ball up, and I'm going to hit into the box. Now this is something you can use if you want to learn continental grip. So if you're not familiar with that, we'll throw that in here. Continental grip is the grip that you're going to use for the tennis serve. It's not necessary in the beginning, but let's say you wanted to learn continental grip as well. You use the continental grip. If you don't know what continental grip is, look it up somewhere else. You can do a Google search or something. You're just going to hold it like a hammer, basically, or some variation of that. I'm going to toss the ball up and play the ball and get used to that. Get used to that motion. Get used to from here, this position from here, with the continental grip to a nice solid contact point. Now, second phase, and this is for like absolute beginners that you're going to do these exercises, and you might have to do them a lot. So the second phase, you're going to get into this trophy position or the throw. I like it. It's called the throw position. Okay, just like if I was going to throw, toss the ball up and throw the racket at the ball. Now here, I'm going to add another video in here of me throwing rackets. And you can do this is kind of like we're in the throwing rackets phase, the throwing phase. So you're going to actually throw rackets. You're going to throw baseballs, tennis balls, whatever. But you also usually, not always, but in a lot of cases, especially with like children, if they don't know how to throw, you can have them throwing old rackets. And that's even better than to learn the motion. That's even better than the ball. Now they have all these like tools and gimmicks that they have that you can buy that to just throw an old racket. And it's funny because when I do this, people look at you weird, like, don't do that, you shouldn't do that. Like, get some old rackets and start throwing them. You know who did this? Serena Williams and Venus Williams. They did this as a kid. This is how you do it. It's the best way to do it because this is what you're actually doing. So you can see me here I'm not actually really doing it fully. I'm just kind of pushing the racket just to demonstrate. But ideally, you would throw the racket, and it's okay that you don't have a full like throw at first. You're just kind of doing it in a controlled way. So here is me throwing rackets, and I have the camera here facing the fence, and that's and you could do it this way too. If you don't want to throw the rackets, I ideally you just throw them for distance. It's more practice for throwing. Throw it for distance. You can throw it against the fence. If you don't want to do that. You don't want to hurt anyone, hit anyone, etc. You can just practice throwing it against different ways of throwing against the fence. Now I'm kind of practicing the actual serve with the serve motion, and I'm not really doing it that intensely. But this is another thing with the serve. You can use the fence. You can use the fence. Let me find a nice picture here. You can use the fence to practice your serve too. So you could have them serving into the fence to practice this motion so that they don't freeze up. So it's kind of like a back and forth. You might go onto the court and have them, or especially when you're teaching, because people tend to freeze up. They're trying to get it in the box. You don't worry about getting in the box. Throw the ball up, and just toss the ball up and play your serve, and not really worry so much if it goes in the box, and then slowly work your way into the box, and that's how you get over that fear and and stop yourself from freezing up. You don't worry about making the shot so much, and if they can't do that, or if you have a hard time with that, then you just practice against the fence so that there's no feedback, there's no result, because the feedback could be what's freezing you up. Okay, so here we're going to incorporate the toss. So we've separated so far. The two things I really wanted to focus on was the toss and the throwing action. And these are the two you might have to separate. And I'm actually not doing it in the ideal way here. Okay, here I am. If you're working with someone who's not very coordinated, I do juggling and things like that. I tell you exactly what I did with a kid. I had a kid and I developed his serve. And his serve is never going to be like absolutely amazing as far as like a weapon, because this kid, he lacked strength, he lacked coordination, he had no sporting experience whatsoever. But I mentioned this kid because I developed his serve in a pretty good way for considering all that. And the way I did it was, you have your toss, and you could practice tossing up into a ring. Like you can do it without the serve, without the racket, and just have them tossing up into a ring, like a basketball hoop. That way they get used to doing it exactly the way it is in a real serve. You can do it here, like I'm doing it with the racket, and before I get into that though, and just these ideas of this games that you can practice tossing. And I did with him, I alternated juggling. I taught him how to juggle. So he did like juggling exercises, and then I did tossing, like an actual toss as he would in a game, to give him some variation, because that variation is, if he can juggle, if he can get good at juggling, I know he's going to be able to toss better. And even the idea of tossing in a ring, if he can toss the ball consistently in a ring, like 7, 8 out of 10 times, I know he's going to be able to toss consistently on the tennis court. So, and of course, you're going to use your off hand. There's nothing wrong with using both hands, especially when you're working with kids. You want to make it fun. So there's that element. So we had the throw. Now we're integrating the toss, and then there's the integrating the toss with the racket going back. Now, if you watch me serve, it looks like I'm kind of like, you see this a lot with serving, where you see one arm goes up, one arm goes back. It's not exactly, if you're doing that, if a kid's doing that, it's okay, but it's not exactly like that. It's more of a toss goes up and then a rotation. And then the racket just kind of slowly gets into that position. And you'll see guys do different variations of this. None of that really matters, okay? You can do it the way I'm doing it. You can do it where you're just bringing it straight up. You can do it where something that's kind of in between. I just want to mention that the more you focus on stuff like that that doesn't matter, the more it's going to mess you up. Okay, these are just variations that different people have. All that matters is the ball goes up and the racket gets into the right position. Boom, you're ready to serve. Okay, everything else right there. None of the other stuff matters. You get in this position, the toss is in the right position, and then you throw the racket at the ball. So you can practice this as well, where they do the now they do the toss and then they get in this position. You can do some of these. These don't have to be in order necessarily. You can put them in order eventually. You put them in order, but they can just be depending on what the person needs. And the thing also to mention with the racket, here I am again. If we go back here, a lot of people, it's not exactly like a throw, right? You have to, once you have the throwing motion down, you have to, and this is where the racket comes in, where the it's key with throwing the racket. You're gonna reach up as high as you can, and that's something that may need to be learned as well. Getting used to that. You're throwing like some people have. They have. When I say you learn, it's a throw. You have to learn how to throw with being fully extended. So if they're not doing that, then they need to learn that as well. Which you learn that by throwing the racket fully extended. Now this right, we'll come back to this. I want to mention this because if you got a kid or you're just new into tennis and you want to play the game, there's nothing wrong with serving like this. The way I'm explaining this serve in a lot of cases is something that if you have a lot of time, long term, this is how you would do it. But if you want to play, you might skip all this. You might just do it a little bit sometimes because you want to play. There's nothing wrong with that. And the thing to mention if you watch me, the toss doesn't have to be perfect. These are all kind of really coordination exercises. Because I can serve, you can see the toss is going to go back. I can serve with the toss being off. And you and the learner should be able to do that as well. It doesn't need to be perfect. So if they're making mistakes because of the toss, it's really, and the toss is close, it's not so much the toss exclusively.